For 30 transformative years, Johnny Carson welcomed America's biggest celebrities into millions of living rooms across the nation, his warm demeanor and infectious laugh creating an intimate atmosphere that made viewers feel like they were witnessing friendly conversations between old acquaintances over evening coffee. But when the studio lights dimmed and the last audience member headed home, Carson's carefully maintained smile would often fade completely, revealing a much more complex and discerning personality beneath the polished television host facade. According to those who worked closest to him throughout his legendary tenure, Carson maintained what could only be described as a mental blacklist of guests he genuinely despised, not for their lack of talent or entertainment value, but for their behavior as human beings when they thought no cameras were recording their actions. A former Tonight Show producer who collaborated with Carson for over a decade revealed that while Johnny was the ultimate professional when the red recording light was on, the moment they cut to commercial breaks, he would sometimes lean over to Ed McMahon and whisper observations like that person should never be allowed near a camera or a child, demonstrating his ability to see through carefully constructed public personas to the disturbing reality underneath. As Carson aged and his career wound toward its conclusion, he became increasingly candid with close friends about the celebrities he had secretly despised throughout his career, sharing stories that painted disturbing pictures of beloved icons who were monsters hiding behind their meticulously crafted public images, including shocking revelations about legendary actresses who appeared sweet and vulnerable on his couch but backstage had verbally assaulted young production assistants so viciously that security personnel had to physically intervene, and beloved male stars whom Carson had caught engaging in behavior so disturbing in their dressing rooms that the host nearly contacted law enforcement. Joan Crawford topped Carson's list of most despised guests, representing everything he found reprehensible about Hollywood's manufactured glamour, as when she appeared on The Tonight Show in 1970, viewers witnessed the gracious Hollywood legend they had admired for decades with her perfect posture, immaculate appearance and practiced charm embodying old Hollywood elegance. But according to multiple Tonight Show staff members, Crawford's off-camera behavior revealed a completely different person whom Carson later described to his biographer as one of the coldest people I've ever interviewed, like talking to a beautiful statue with nothing inside. Crawford's appearance created problems before she even arrived at the studio, with demands including specific lighting requirements so detailed that the show's technical director kept a 4-page memo in his files decades later, requiring precise positioning of her chair, exact height adjustments for Carson's desk, and studio temperature maintained at exactly 67 degrees, not 66 or 68. When Crawford finally arrived 3 hours before taping with her own makeup team despite the show having award-winning makeup artists on staff, what truly revealed her character was how differently she treated people based on their perceived importance, practically curtsying to Carson while launching into a vicious tirade against a 20-year-old production assistant who accidentally entered her dressing room with requested water, allegedly calling the young woman a brainless little expletive and suggesting she find work at a brothel where incompetence might be considered an asset, causing the assistant to flee in tears while Crawford demanded her immediate termination. Carson's producer refused this demand, creating tension that lasted throughout the taping. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't just Crawford's treatment of staff but the calculating way she transformed when cameras turned on, becoming what one producer described as a machine pretending to be a woman, who had rehearsed every answer, laugh and spontaneous moment until nothing felt authentic. During commercial breaks, Crawford would immediately drop her smile and sit in stone-faced silence, not speaking to anyone, then instantly reanimate when the red light returned, leaving Carson struggling to find any genuine connection with her and reportedly telling Ed McMahon afterward, "I've interviewed corpses with more personality." Frank Sinatra represented a different but equally troubling type of celebrity behavior that Carson found deeply disturbing, as while on screen the legendary singer and Johnny appeared to share cordial, even friendly relationships with Sinatra, joking, telling stories, and occasionally performing while Carson played the respectful host. Behind the scenes Carson reportedly harbored deep dislike for Sinatra, not for his undeniable talent which Carson respected, but for how Old Blue Eyes treated people when he thought no one important was watching. Carson once told a friend that if Sinatra didn't sing, he would be a mob enforcer, and sometimes he thought Sinatra was both, reflecting his observations of the singer's intimidating behavior toward staff members. Sinatra's appearances became notorious among crew members for the tension they created, as he would arrive with entourages of up to 8 men described as not show business types, but rather guys you wouldn't want to meet in an alley, who would spread throughout the studio watching staff and creating what one cameraman described as an atmosphere like being under surveillance. What truly disturbed Carson was witnessing how Sinatra treated people he deemed beneath him, including an incident in the early 1970s when a floor manager made the standard mistake of giving Sinatra a 3-minute warning before his segment, prompting the singer to grab the man by his tie, pull him close, and declare, "Nobody tells me when I've got 3 minutes, I'll go on when I'm ready," leaving the floor manager, a Korean War veteran in his 50s, visibly shaken. When Carson witnessed this interaction from his office monitor, he nearly cancelled the segment and only continued after producers reminded him of the rating Sinatra would bring, though he later established a policy limiting Sinatra to maximum one appearance per year, an unprecedented move for Carson, who rarely involved himself in booking decisions and almost never banned guests outright. The list continued with other problematic celebrities, including Orson Welles, whose enormous ego convinced him that normal television rules didn't apply to him, regularly dismissing prepared questions as pedestrian and obvious, and staying on Carson's couch for 25 minutes during scheduled 7-minute segments while ignoring multiple subtle cues that time was running short. Bette Davis brought verbal violence to the show, berating other guests and staff members while demanding whiskey before appearances and using sexist and racist language that shocked even by 1970 standards, prompting Carson to make rare exceptions to his policy of avoiding confrontation by quietly telling her, "On this show we speak to everyone with respect or we don't speak at all." Mickey Rooney, the aging child star, became notorious for inappropriate behavior toward young female staff members, unwanted touching, suggestive comments, and apparent intoxication during multiple appearances, leading Carson to require daytime pre-tapings rather than live evening broadcasts when Rooney was scheduled. Zsa Zsa Gabor, while entertaining on camera, created legendary backstage chaos with demands including specific room temperatures, fresh orchids, Perrier water with exactly 3 ice cubes, personal lighting technicians, and requirements that no female guests younger than 40 be booked on the same episodes, often delaying tapings and throwing entire schedules into chaos. Shelley Winters represented unpredictable volatility, launching into intense political diatribes or deeply personal revelations that left Carson visibly uncomfortable, while staff would actually remove throwable items from sets when they knew she was coming, though Carson maintained some respect for her passionate authenticity. Jane Russell's extreme political views and reported discriminatory treatment of LGBTQ+ staff members, including refusing services from gay makeup artists and making derogatory comments about other performers' sexuality, led to her being effectively blacklisted despite her iconic status and historical significance to Hollywood. Finally, Jerry Lewis earned perhaps Carson's most intense dislike for behavior that contrasted sharply with his public humanitarian persona, reportedly talking over Carson, hijacking questions, making unwanted physical contact, refusing to learn staff names, and screaming at crew members for minor infractions like quiet coughing during rehearsals, leading Carson to describe him as truly hateful, and ensuring he never appeared on the show again after the early 1980s. What makes Carson's assessments particularly valuable and credible is that he occupied a unique position in the entertainment industry with no reason to exaggerate or invent negative stories, as he was at the absolute pinnacle of show business with nothing to gain from criticizing celebrities and everything to lose if his honesty damaged relationships with potential guests. Yet he distinguished between guests who were merely difficult and those he considered truly problematic, tolerating eccentricity, nervousness, and moderate ego while drawing firm lines at cruelty, especially toward those with less power. His simple test, as recalled by his longtime director, was observing how celebrities treated pages, assistants, and camera operators, believing this revealed everything necessary about someone's character, and in the years since Carson's death in 2005, many of his private opinions have been validated by broader revelations about these celebrities, suggesting he wasn't merely being judgmental but recognizing genuine character flaws that Hollywood's publicity machine worked overtime to conceal from the public. The most sobering aspect of Carson's blacklist demonstrates how effectively the studio system protected these celebrities despite their behavior being known to industry insiders, as long before social media and cancel culture, stars could maintain pristine public images while behaving abominably in private, secure in knowing that studios, networks, and publications all had vested interests in maintaining their marketability, leading Carson to observe that the camera doesn't just add 10 pounds. It adds a layer of fiction, with his greatest skill being not just interviewing people but seeing through that fiction to the truth underneath, serving as a valuable reminder that our cultural icons have always been fallible, complicated human beings, sometimes inspiring, sometimes disappointing, and occasionally truly disturbing behind their carefully crafted public personas.